So, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, hey, it's the Scene World podcast. I'm me. He's over there. Hey, I don't have any news really this month. This is mostly we've got a lot of video to cover, I think.
Oh yes,
so we
definitely.
Should probably make this as short as we can.
Yes, well, we should remind our people about the competition that we have for C64.tv.
Yes.
So if you want to supply your ancient childhood gaming history, you know, with pictures and so on, do it on C64TV /submit-story.
And what do people
And
win?
there you can, well, people can win original games from Cinema Retro and Pawn Software from Vanja Utne.
Okay.
So, pretty good prizes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so definitely worth it. And the deadline is April 1st, so April Fool's Day 2018. And that's not foolish, guys. That's for real.
Very cool.
Right. So other news, yes, the shipping of the limited edition of Street Fighter 2 is delayed throughout December, probably end of December, I guess.
Okay.
They announced it on their homepage, unfortunately, so there is a delay. So that is why I don't have it yet. Right.
You excited for Star Wars?
Oh, definitely. I will definitely have a look at that. I mean,
Got my tickets already.
wow. That is how tickets look in the USA?
When you
Just
get 'em
some
on-
barcodes?
When you get them online, yeah. I bought in advance. It's on Thursday. Thursday I'm going there. I'm going to see it when
Okay.
it comes out.
True. Yep.
I've read some spoilers because I can't not read spoilers, and I'm not too enthused. But every review I've seen says it's awesome. So
Well, I like the other two movies that were before that also, and
I liked Rogue One, and a lot of people did not like that movie at all, and I thought it was awesome.
last year I was actually in that D-box seat where you would be, you know, shaked and have that 3D experience like you were actually sitting in a fighter
Right.
and getting hit and stuff. So I did that on Christmas Eve. There are pretty much people on Christmas Eve in the cinema. You would be
yeah,
surprised.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, too bad for people like in Saudi Arabia that don't have cinemas.
Well,
Well, I guess you can't have it all.
yeah, they have to rely on real life to entertain them.
Well, I guess you have to buy the Blu-ray. And Morocco is actually, I learned is the same.
What
So
is?
we are all spoiled, huh?
What is the same?
They don't have cinemas either.
Oh.
Hmm.
It's first world problems.
Mm.
We're complaining about what might happen in the new Star Wars, and some people just have to read the book.
Or have to wait till it's released on Blu-ray, I guess.
Or go out of the country to see it.
Mm. So what are you doing on Christmas? I'm going out of the country. Going to a cinema. Right.
I'm going abroad to see Star Wars.
Ooh. Right. Well, Vanja Utne announced that there will be a new game in January, actually. Spaceman Sploff, Planet of Doom. It's getting a physical release.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, that game came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but not on a physical release. And it's going to be released for the Commodore 64 on cartridge, disc tape, Atari 2600 cartridge, and Philips Video Pack G70,000 cartridge. No, sorry. and on Philips Video Pack G7000 cartridge early next year.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and Protovision announced that Sam's Journey will be released before Christmas.
And I will be able to use it because I have an NTSC system, but I also have RAM expansion.
Nice. Oh, okay. I got the CMD one, actually.
That one uses less power. I think it's the same otherwise. You know,
okay.
Basically, it's based on the same hardware, but it doesn't require the heavy-duty power supply, which I've got anyway. So.
Yeah, it's right. The CMD RAM expansion actually used the same parts like Commodore did. This they only had a limited run.
Yeah.
You who thought that the Super CPU and the RAM expansion from CMD would be someday rare stuff that would
I know
bring $1,000 on eBay.
Yeah, I know. Even the regular Commodore REUs, they go for a premium. They're over $200 for the low one. You know, like the 256K. I don't know. I don't know. It's crazy. There's some. You find some good stuff. I found this. Let me move some things out of the way. This is an Enhancer 2000 disk drive.
Oh yes. Okay.
I found this on eBay. A guy was. I don't think he had any idea what it was, because he had it listed as just a Chinan or a Kynan or however how you pronounce that drive. $5.
Oh, nice.
And it works. It's really weird, the latching mechanism. It's like a...
Okay. Yeah, like the early 1541 had the same mechanism.
No, the early 1541 mechanism is horrible compared to this. That 1541...
Yeah, exactly this one, yeah.
You gotta push it in, though. You can't...
I know.
This
yeah.
one is super complicated on the inside, but you push it down and it locks, and then you push it down again and it unlocks.
Okay.
It's a weird drive. It doesn't like fast loaders. Doesn't work with every game because it's not a 1541.
What is it called again?
Enhancer 2000.
Enhancer 2000. Isn't that the same as the European Oceanic drive?
No, that's the accelerator.
Ah, that was the accelerator. Okay.
That one was very compatible. This one is not so compatible.
Okay.
Yeah, my dogs are barking.
Oh god damn me. I just did a system restore and Windows booted up within a minute. Now let's see if sound works. 1 sec. Just wanna know. Wait a second.
And if any of our listeners have eBay, you can purchase this fine Enhancer 2000 disk drive from my eBay store for $65.
Okay. Unfortunately, you really want that? Sell that? Seriously?
Yeah, you know, here's the thing, right? I saw it online, and I was like, oh, I always wanted to see. I always wanted to play with one of those when I was younger, right? So I got it. I took it apart. I made sure everything worked and everything, and I played with it for a couple of days. I have no use for it.
Then why would you buy it in the first place?
Because I always wanted one, and because it was like $5 on eBay. So why wouldn't I? You know, it's one of these things where at this point in my life, there's a lot of hardware that I kind of always wanted to see, always wanted to try out, and stuff that I'd heard about but never actually got to use. And people sell the stuff on eBay for nothing, and it's like, okay, well, I'll take it and I'll play with it. I got no use for it. I don't have like a display case or anything for this stuff here. So it's like, for me, I've got 3 drives over here set up. I don't need another one. You know, I'm plenty set. But or if I see one that's not working, you know, 1541, usually it's something simple I can fix. So I'll grab it and fix it and send it on. And if it helps someone keep a system alive, then I'm all for it.
But I guess they never made a European version of that drive.
I think they did, yeah. It uses the it's an external power supply, and it uses the same power supply as the 1541-2 and the 1581.
But isn't it time for NTSC stuff?
No. It's a disk drive. It's the power supply is external, so as long as you have a European power supply for a 1541-2, the rest of it doesn't matter.
So how much do you want for it?
I put it up for $65.
$65. Mm-hmm. Ooh.
I think that's reasonable. It's a fairly rare drive. It's in great working shape. I mean, it works beautifully.
But no, the problem is not the price. The problem is what I have to pay on top of it for VAT. Because if you say 65 and it also takes a bit of shipping, then I will probably pay like 50 euros on top of it, or 30 or something.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
You can make an offer. You know, it's 65 or best offer.
You know how many people accept best offers? None.
I usually do. If I get an offer, I will usually accept it. I got an offer on this already. It was like $40 or something the guy offered, and I'm looking and there's 5 people watching the sale right now, and I'm like, no, because someone will pay the 65 for it.
Well then, sell it to me.
$65.
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's not hugely compatible with the 1541. So if there's anything that uses a fast loader, it's not going to work. You know, and most of the cartridges, you know, the Super Snapshot and Final Cartridge 3, it hates them. It won't do anything. Epic's fast load, it will tolerate, but it's not fast.
Okay.
Like it doesn't use the fast loader thing in it, and but it is fast out of the box. It's like 40% faster than a 1541. But all you can do is just basic, you know, disk access. It's not like you know, nothing really that uses fast loader is going to work with it.
So the thing is, you don't want me to buy it.
I don't care, but I mean,
it's not really useful. I see.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, and that's one of the things. Like I got a 1541-2, I've got a 71, and I've got another just a plain old white bread 1541 that are hooked up and working. And for me, this thing doesn't serve a purpose other than the fact that I always wanted to play with one, and I have now played with one, and I can let it go to someone that wants it. But I'm also poor, and I need to buy a car. So if I can make a $60 profit off of this.
Ooh.
Then I will.
Okay. My problem is customs and shipping.
Yeah,
that will make this thing super expensive for me.
This 1541-2 that's below it is also on eBay for $55.
Okay, well I have enough of those.
And again, I justify this price partially because of the fact that I have taken it apart. It had a bad 6522. I fixed that. I cleaned it. I basically disassembled the whole thing, re-oiled everything because the spindle was you know, seizing up. You know, I put new chips in it. I heat sinked the thing because that's a big issue with them is the heat retention. So it's like I will guarantee that drive will work. Whereas everybody else, they put them up for like $30 and they're like, you know, the light turns on, but I can't test it. You know, this thing, it works. I used it like for over 24 hours at a stretch. I had it working, and there's no issues with it. So I will guarantee to you that this will get there and will work, and it's not going to be a piece of junk. So I can justify charging a little bit extra based on the fact that I'll guarantee it. And if it doesn't work for some reason, then I've got another one you can have.
Yeah, it's just
maybe we probably shouldn't have any of this in the podcast itself.
I know. I will remove that.
I don't want to be like, buy these drives. I know, like a used car salesman. But yeah, I sold one 1541 and I sold it for like $65. This one is going for $55 just because, it's about right. And this one I was doing $65, which for the rarity of these drives is actually pretty low, I think.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about that.
Plus, I sell it with my lovely homemade test demo disc, and everyone gets a free copy of The Undead by RPG.
Well,
so
okay, be damned. I
actually found a dot matrix font so I can make it look like an old school label.
Nice.
Printed it with my inkjet because I'm a dork.
I have laser.
These discs, by the way, I got a bunch of these. These floppies, these suck. Well, I don't understand why it is that colored discs, if they have colors on them, they're always terrible, but in my experience. These are like, they're the kind of drive where you put them in the drive and it's like...
I know. The mini discs, for example, were pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Do you have them in the USA?
I think so, yeah.
Mini discs? Those were terrible.
Yeah. And I'm doing like a speed test with these things, and if I'm using one of these discs in the drive for the speed test, it slows it down so much because they don't want to spin.
I know.
These guys are freaking amazing. The Highland, these are my favorite discs so far.
We don't have them in Europe.
No?
Nope.
I think they're just 3M. But these discs are some of the nicest I have found. But the blue ones suck ass.
Be damned.
Well, anyway, so let's finish this up. So we're waiting right there to talk about the American conventions with John. Oh wait, no. He didn't want us to use his name, right?
He didn't want to use his last name.
Oh, okay, with John, yes. Okay. So we're waiting with John right over there to talk about the American conventions. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Everything just updated on my machine. So new Skype, new call recorder. Hopefully everything records okay and doesn't suck.
Great.
I was worried. I was messing with, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pi-hole for the Raspberry Pi. It's like an ad black hole. No. So ad blocker that works on the network level. And I've been working to get that thing functional for the last 12 hours. And at one point, my router wouldn't come back up. I'm like, oh, man. I thought I might have to miss this, but thankfully I pulled that out of the fire. But yeah. Anyway, don't know why I shared that, but I did.
Yeah.
Well, that's a disadvantage if you are into IT and that stuff. You tend to break your stuff more than people who have no idea what they are doing and calling their son to fix it. Like me.
Yeah.
I introduced my mom into soft phones,
Oh, God.
The concept that the phone doesn't have to be a physical device. It can be an app on an iPhone, Wow.
Doesn't have to be wired to the wall.
No. So
Grandma still got her old rotary.
yeah, well that doesn't work in Germany anymore. Now they switched all to VoIP, you know. And even the bank said, like, if you make a transaction, use our app. There's no more SMS.
You know, and that raises an interesting issue too, because you know, I got this modem, you know, and before I ripped it apart, I was like, you know, maybe plug it in and hear that noise again. And I thought, you know, I wonder if you can actually call boards. And I started looking it up, and you can't anymore, because even if they are hooked up still, the VoIP lines can't handle the frequencies that the modem. They compress the sound.
It's compressing signals. Yep.
So the modem won't work over it.
Yep. That's true.
That's kind of surprising and a little disappointing.
No, it's not surprising. It's not surprising. It's actually also the reason why fax doesn't work anymore over VoIP.
Yeah.
Oh.
Except you have like VoIP, fax over Internet Protocol.
Well, I think
which
fax
is also
too.
called T.83. Yeah.
I think fax
sorry,
operates at a
38.
slow enough rate where I think it can kind of make up for it a little bit. But apparently modems are, you know, they can't handle the compression, and they just won't work. Because I was like, maybe I'll get one of those, you know, those whatever they got, the USB phone line thing. I can't think what it's called, Magic Jack or some nonsense. Maybe I'll get one of them, because I don't have an actual physical phone line in this house. But
so it wouldn't even support the lower baud rates, like 300, 1200, nothing, huh?
Nothing. No, it's also a difference between digital and analog signals. You know, the digital signals cut off the analog signals.
Okay.
No. You know, the analog signals are like a wave, and the digital signals are like.
Yeah.
So the edges of the signals are cut off.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's not only the compression; it's also the way the signals are transformed.
Yeah, it is disappointing, because I thought maybe, oh man, I can play with this for a little bit and see if I can connect to things, and it's like, no, you can't. None of that.
It's kind of one of those you can't go home again kind of things, you know. You know, I might not be calling BBSs anymore, but at least I like the idea of the possibility, and my possibilities over. I spent an incredible amount of time on BBSs back in the 80s, like a lot.
I know. I've read your article in the last scene wrote. Yeah.
You should get a Wi-Fi modem. Hook them back up.
What's that?
You should get a Wi-Fi modem. Come back onto them.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I've got an Apple II GS that I'd like to get online, and I've got my SX64 that I'd like to get online too. But
well, Nick makes the Strike Link Wi-Fi modem, and it's like $20, and it's amazing.
No kidding, for the 64.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Stuff for the older, my other stuff is expensive and limited quantities and expensive.
well, Nick is doing a lot of stuff.
All right, so we're here. We're talking to me. We're talking to John about the AmeriCon.
And I see you up there too.
Yeah, but he doesn't count because he's not American.
Oh, harsh.
Not yet.
His Gamescom experience was last episode.
All right.
This will be focusing on the two good ones here in the U.S. that happened, which was ECCC and a video game con, which I went to, which I think was the same day.
Right. Yeah, the ECCC, back when I first started going to it, man, I think it was like 10 years ago, was primarily for the Commodore 64, and they let VCF, which is the Vintage Computer Festival, kind of tag along. The ECC had the main room, and the VCF kind of had this smaller room, and, you know, they brought in some interesting things, like I saw an Apple I board, you know, an original soldered by Steve Wozniak Apple I board. They often had things like the IBM PC Junior up, but, you know, nothing really mind-blowing. All the really cool things were happening in the ECCC room. But as the years have gone by, VCF is really taken off, and you'd be hard-pressed to distinguish between the VCF and the ECCC now. It's just one big room and a couple of satellite rooms where people set up stuff for sale and that kind of thing. But I didn't, off in the corner were the style guys like Elwix and Demonger X and a few of the other guys that I talked with and interviewed Demonger X. I don't know if you've seen the video that I sent you in its entirety, but yeah, I interviewed him. He does work with preservation, kind of like I do, and we kind of swap notes and talk about what we've been doing. He gave me a giant box of discs that I'm still working through from last year, preserving them. But other than that, the major kind of the belle of the ball was for the Commodore 64 this year, and that was the VR64 device. And people were really amazed with it, and it is pretty impressive, all things considered. Yeah. I actually have an interview with him as well.
Wow.
Have you seen the videos that I sent you? So
yep.
Okay. Yeah, and he really goes into detail. He fielded some of my more stupid questions, which I appreciate. But yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. So are you enjoying the game?
Yeah.
Are you a Commodore enthusiast, or are you just here to kind of see what Commodore has to offer?
Yeah, no, I've had Commodore since I was like 11, 12.
And as far as the games for the Commodore goes, is this something new, something interesting?
Yeah, I don't remember anyone like this.
Yeah. Sorry, I totally blew your game.
Yeah.
You almost beat your son.
Oh yeah, 6. A third of my other bad score.
So you played?
Yep.
Do you mind? Can I video you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me what you thought about the game.
I really like it. I love the idea of taking something that's more modern, like the idea of VR goggles, and bringing it back. It's such a cool perspective, and the game itself is fun and more complex than it seems, with different ammo types. So,
did he say that one of these scores are yours?
yep, I'm Skylar Kennedy.
Okay, you number one or number? Oh, you are number one. And they're running a competition. If you walk out of here with a high score, you get one of these for free.
Yep. If you, I think it's tomorrow, they're going to announce if you're the highest score, then you get to bring one of these home.
All right, I'm rooting for you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Apparently he's
I'm with Scene World magazine, and yeah, I told my editor that I'd get a lot of video. I saw the reveal, and I'm pretty geeked about it, and I want to talk to him about it.
Did you go to the, you didn't go to the presentation though?
No, I didn't make it in time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had it early in the morning so my daughter could be there.
Oh, okay. I didn't get in till about 3, so I totally missed it.
That's fine. I got a blog up now, and it kind of goes over the same things I went over.
All right. Yeah, I've been taking video of people playing, so I just want to talk a little bit about why it exists, actually.
Okay.
So why did what made you think about a VR game for the Commodore 64, and why do you think the palette would be appropriate for it?
So this is like, I've done a project before, like a touchscreen interface for the Commodore 64.
Yes.
So I guess I kind of am in this vein of what could we also do with these computers that is kind of analogous to what people are doing today, but would still work with this old technology.
Right.
And so when my daughter was thinking of a science fair project, I kind of pushed her in the direction of doing a VR goggles.
Right.
And we kept it to like Google Cardboard, and we were able to create a static 3D image and a 3D video and create our own Google Cardboard viewers and stuff. But the whole time I'm thinking, I want to do this for the Commodore 64.
Right.
And so, when we got done with her science fair and stuff, that's when I started like buying little LCDs and seeing if they would work. And in the beginning I thought I would build my own whole goggles out of wood or something. But then I found these. They're like $10 online with where you're supposed to put a phone in them.
Right.
So I basically bought a 5-inch LCD wide format that has composite input, and I'm putting it in there instead of the phone and gluing it in there. So now it's a dedicated VR goggles for this, for really a composite out computer. But
Right.
of course, branded them for the 64.
So, the one thing that really struck me was that this is possible on the Commodore 64 palette. You have a 16 color limitation. So how did you overcome that, or wasn't that even an issue?
So the color limitation wasn't an issue, and I didn't even stretch it very far. It almost looks like a Spectrum game or something because it's very solid, bold colors.
Right.
You know, what probably is more impactful is the fact that I split the screen in the middle. The middle two columns are unused. So now I only have a 19 wide column of video on each side, or of imagery on each side. So it's like 152 pixels across in high-res mode, and like 75 or something like that in multicolor mode.
Okay.
So it's like not a lot of pixels per section of the screen that your eye is looking at. And that was one reason I wanted the widescreen format on the LCD that goes in the headset, so that it would stretch it out a little bit further. But, you know, if you think about what you're doing with the game and you configure it correctly, that is enough pixels to make a game and to make something fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about VIC-20 or something like that. There's fun games for that too. It has a lot less pixels.
So tell me a little bit about the software. How long did it take for you to develop it?
So this is only the second machine language program I've ever made. So a year ago I didn't know how to do machine language. So I had some flights for work, overseas flights, and I read Jim Butterfield's book online. I didn't have the physical book, I downloaded it. And so I started learning how to do machine language programming. And so I did another game probably through the May time period, and I never even released it, but it was like a much simpler game. It was just to get my legs under me. And then probably in June or into May, in June, I was like, oh my gosh, that conference is going to be on me at any moment. I got to get working on this game. And so I just dove headfirst into this game. And so I've been working on it probably since then until now. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about the game? I mean, what's the objective? It looks like a zombie hunt of some sort?
So the name of the game is Street Defender. Okay. And so you are the setting is in the future, 1986. And it's a post-apocalyptic type scenario. And Earth is being invaded by ninjas, aliens, and robots. And there's a whole story there about why they're invading. And so you have, as weapons, you can punch, throw knives, shoot a bullet, or throw a grenade. And so then there's different enemies, and the different weapons have different strengths against each other. So if you want to get good at the game, you got to think about what enemy is attacking you and what you want to fight them with. And so there's four cardinal directions you can look, and they're different streets in the city. And then there's the diagonal views between it, so there's 8 views along. So it's kind of like a first-person shooter view scenario. You can't move though, so you can only rotate. And then, so in the beginning, all the enemies attack from one direction, but quickly they start attacking from all 4 directions. And you only get power-ups. If an enemy is flashing yellow, that means he has a power-up, but you can only capture that power-up if you kill him when he's close to you. So it puts you in this predicament of trying to wait for this enemy to get close to you so you can kill him, but at the same time somebody might be attacking from the sides or from behind. So you got to kind of continually look around and try to make sure you're okay to wait for this guy to kill him so you can get the power-up. And the power-ups can give you more knives, more bullets, more grenades, or more health. And of course, health goes to 0, the game's over, and it's just based on the number of kills you get.
So what kind of feedback are you getting? I mean, this has been a very popular attraction throughout the entire festival. So what have the feedback?
People really like it, and it's it's not a complex game. It's one scenario that just goes on and on. But I've got two people here who have been fighting all day for the high score, and I got a contest going on. Whoever gets the high score today wins one of the VR sets. And so they've been leapfrogging each other all day. And I got a little black and white monitor over here, run by a VIC-20 under the table, that's keeping the high score list. And so I think before the conference, my high score was 117, and they're up to 331. So they like, totally passed me. And I was actually pretty happy that the score rolled over 255 and the game didn't crash because I'd never tested that before. So it's all working out great.
Excellent. So are you planning any more games for this VR headset?
I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead. I mean, now that I have a platform, I'm sure I'll do some more things with it, right? I put a blog up there so people can go up and make their own if they want. It's only 3 parts that I put together: a cheap plastic headset, a LCD, and a power supply. But it would be fun for me to make some more games. It'd be fun for other people to make games. Somebody to make the first 3D demo for the Commodore 64. So yeah, it'd be fun to see more things come out for this.
Yeah.
And I went with calling it the VR 64 and branding it and stuff like that, just to have fun with it.
The headsets look absolutely phenomenal. I've been getting shots of them all day long.
Good.
And I've been watching people play, and I've got some good footage of them playing the game. And I think that you created something that's really amazing. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of interesting things come out for the Commodore 64 for a long, long time. I mean, the last 15 years, somebody has been creating something new and envelope pushing, and I think this is definitely within that realm. All right, you have anything else to add?
Well, yeah, it's just been a fun project. I've learned so much doing it, and it's great that I was setting up and I was putting up 3 machines. I'm like, maybe I'm doing overkill on this, and it's just been great to see all these people playing it and having fun with it all day.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
It was a really impressive thing. I talked to people that were using it, and they were really amazed that a computer that was released in 1982 could actually produce this kind of gaming software. So,
and it did it pretty well too. I was looking at a YouTube video where they were demonstrating it, and if you sit there and kind of cross your eyes a little bit, you can get the same effect, and it actually, like, it looks good. Even from, I can only imagine what it would look like with the goggles on. But I mean, just looking at my screen real close with my eyes crossed, it looked good.
Right. He admitted that the software was just kind of a proof of concept kind of thing. He wanted a game, and he wanted to show off the abilities of the game. But he said that the possibilities for this device is, well, there's a lot of possibilities for him. I don't want to say endless, but yeah, it was a neat little thing. I'm trying to think of what else I could talk about. A lot of vendors. I talked with a lot of people. I think I found out who stole my SX64 accessory case. Ooh. That was impressive.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, last year I brought a bunch of stuff. What I really enjoy doing is buying old equipment and piecemealing it back together so I get a functional unit. Sometimes I'll buy new chips for them, but unless I'm cheap or broke or whatever, I won't. But I'll bring the repaired machines into the ECCC/VCF and sell them. And last year I brought in one of those accessory bags that came with the SX64, and I was looking for like $3 or $4. And for the most part, one of the great things about these conventions is people are often very friendly and they're very honest, and it reminds me of being 15, 16-year-old, and everybody's so wide-eyed and interested in everything. It was really, really cool. I always loved the culture. But last year somebody stole my accessory bag from my SX64 off my table, and yeah, I was pretty upset over that loss of $4 or $5.
Yeah.
I think I found out who did it, but I wasn't about to level an accusation. But I don't know, closure.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I can be petty.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, other than that, I'm trying to. I mean, there's an Atari section. SCAT, they call themselves the, oh man, I can't even remember what it stands for. But they gave away fruit pens, and that was kind of nice. Okay. Some guys wheel in these old school mainframes, like the stuff that you'd see in a 1970s warehouse style from, Controlled Data or one of those old data service centers. Pretty much every computer you can think of was represented there, from the Atari line to the Commodore line through the Amiga to PC. A lot of luggables, a lot of stuff like that. A lot of stuff for sale, but yeah, that was pretty much it. And of course, a lot of good conversation and a lot of things to see and do. Even my younger kids enjoy going there with me every year. So, yeah.
It's one of those they got patronized.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I keep saying, like, I got to get to it, and I gotta go there one year, and I never actually get around to it.
You're in the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
Massachusetts?
No, New Jersey.
Area?
New Jersey, Maryland, that area.
Okay. Yeah, it's not too terrible of a drive. How long of a drive is it to Chicago?
Probably about
10 hours? 9 hours?
10, 12 hours, something like
that. Okay. Yeah. It's the room. They give discounts for people going to this festival, so you can probably get there, stay cheap, drink lots of beer with us, go home.
Yeah.
See some really cool things.
I did make it to VCFEast earlier in the year. I think that was in March or April or something, that was cool. There was a huge Commodore section. There was lots of other stuff, but really, like, the main draw was this big wall of Commodore.
Really?
Yeah.
So just old machines, or?
Yeah, I mean, they had pretty much one of everything that they had made, including the C65.
No kidding.
Yeah, the Anthony Becker from the Guru Meditation, he has a C65 and he had it set up. So it was.
Did he have any? Was he running any software on it?
No, it was just kind of sitting there. He just had it turned on. I think that they discovered that it didn't have enough memory to do stuff.
Okay.
I guess it was still a prototype unit, so this one didn't have the full amount of memory.
Okay.
Yes, the C65 was, like I said, not really sold, but was given away in different states. Mm-hmm. Some didn't have the WIC, some didn't have enough memory.
Yeah.
So just proof of concept?
Yeah.
That kind of, yeah. All right.
So.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing one of those someday.
Yeah.
Just never seen one.
But missing RAM shouldn't be a problem.
I may have touched it.
Wow.
So you weren't supposed to, but yeah.
Anthony, we touched your C65.
I waited till they were occupied with Bill Hurd, and then I was like, yeah. But they had the whole wall of 64s and other Commodore stuff. Then they had the wall of Amiga, and that's pretty much where everyone was going. The rest of they had lots of other stuff, older machines and vintage things, but I'd say 90% of the attention was on that Commodore wall.
I'm kind of wishing that would happen back in Chicago again, but VCF has really got their, I don't want to say hooks into it. I think they contribute a lot. I mean, the majority of the stuff there is theirs, and I think a lot of computer history and really cool things are there. But I kind of missed the Commodore-centric festival that it used to. They moved into a larger venue over the last couple of years, and even this one is getting crowded. I asked if I could have table space for the stuff I wanted to bring in and sell. They said there's no room. You can maybe share a table with somebody, but I wasn't going to lug stuff a couple 100 miles to maybe sell it, or sell it out of the trunk of my car. But yeah, I mean, that's my only real complaint, but it's not much of a complaint. It's just, it's not my 100% area of interest. It's just,
Yeah.
It was something else I was going to bring up, something else that I saw, but I can't think of it at this time. Yeah, it'll come to me.
Yeah. And the style guys, Elwix is still going to that, and
yeah, I saw Elwix. I saw Demonger. A lot of preservation going on. Demonger spent most of the time copying floppies. The box that I have, I'm still slowly nibbling through. But as I mentioned in that Scene World disc ripping video that I did, it's covered in mildew, and ripping 10 discs takes probably an hour and a half or more just for 10. And I can never really justify sitting down and spending that kind of time for such small progress. And I know that sounds kind of crappy, but
it's, especially if it's not your stuff, you know. If it's if it's something that for your youth, then it's like, yeah, I'll spend the time because I want to see what I did. But it's somebody else's discs. It's
But still, the e-card application, really enjoyed it.
E-card?
Yeah, in your demo video where you showed how to clean, you know, and
yeah, it's a wonderful piece of software. You can download it from the CSDB. Oh wait, no, you can't. Sorry. I think we have a link on that video though, right? We got it.
Yeah. I got it on the Scene World web space for download. Yeah.
Okay. Is that the raw rip or is that the Hokuto Force release?
I think the raw rip.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
Somebody cracked the card maker, the e-card maker.
Yep, I sent it to Hokuto Force. They crunched it, packed it, put their title on it, and I'm probably the only one with a copy.
Yeah, that's the problem with the 64 scene. It's just like a giant dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
That is why it was important for me that we are host on scene.org and our web space is connected to Scene World and not to me as a person.
Right.
So if I run crazy someday, all the stuff you guys did is secure.
Whew. That kind of happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody drops a nuke. Yeah. Like back when Wanderer was around, he vandalized all his entries when he was on his way out.
Yeah,
it'll have to be through Timanthes though. My SX64 is my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, and I can't squint at that monitor for very long. So, all right, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I also wanted to.
You can connect a monitor to the SX64.
I know, but I don't have one. All mine are VGA or something along those lines, or proprietary for the IBM PC.
There is a solution to that. Let me show you.
Of course, there's a solution to that. It doesn't work that well though. Yeah,
There are breakout adapters for the C64 from Hungary, from AmiBay.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep. So you have the connector on the C64 on one side, and the connectors for everything else on the other side.
Oh, but not VGA though. You've got S-Video and
S-Video, audio, composite. Yep.
Yeah, so that's not going to help with the VGA monitor.
But it helps with an LCD that has S-Video or GP that has S-Video.
Yeah.
Which is also the connection that the C64 Reloaded uses for LCD. Think how much did it cost? Like 25 euros or something? Not really that expensive.
Well, you could also just use the regular C64 cable and just get the S-Video adapter.
No, I didn't even know that existed.
That's also a possibility. Yes.
Yeah, because it's just the 64 outputs. That's what S-Video is. It's just a Luma Chroma.
Okay. Oh, didn't even know that there's an adapter. You see? Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyway, we got drifted off. We were originally talking about a vintage computer festival. It's actually one of the few festivals that drifted over to Europe too.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it's a computer festival. Europe is in Munich.
Okay.
I know they had one in England for a while, but they don't do that anymore. But they have one in Germany, huh? Are you going to go?
No, Munich is way, way too far for me.
Public transport.
You know, your entire country is about as big as my state.
Yeah.
So, and I know last time I checked, Munich is in Germany.
Yeah, but still, it costs me about 250 euros to get there.
Yeah.
Good grief. Okay.
Because both our planes and our trains are pretty expensive.
Okay.
This is Germany. It's not a cheap country. It's not like in Peru where you can drive hours for 2 euros by bus.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Rainer Grapol from the
Great.
Yeah.
Rainer
He actually went to this year, and hopefully he will go again next year. Maybe I can get a report for him for SceneWorld.
Yeah, totes.
Yeah.
Well, I went.
All right. So we're here with a member of Style. So what's your alias?
Demonger X.
All right. And
Originally Demonger, but then I couldn't update my username on CSDB. I had to add the X so that I could get it updated. So it's kind of the way it works sometimes. It's a little slow moving sometimes to get that stuff worked out. So.
and if you were most known for something in the Commodore 64 scene, what would it be?
Archiving.
Archiving.
Yep.
Yeah, you've been doing that all day, haven't you?
No, not very much. I didn't really have that much to archive this year, but I did not come from home, so normally I would bring a few hundred discs with me, and 6 has been the source for discs lately, archives, and he had 1.12 server cases full of discs of the archives.
Oh, crap.
I've been working through some of those, as well as other things I've gotten over myself and for other people over the years. So.
Right.
But yeah, that's a member of Style, but that was kind of I was kind of a fanboy from Style for quite a while, and you know, always on BBSs. I was on the BBS, BBS scene, kind of a lurker in that respect. Went on to a lot of BBSs, did a lot of mail trading, stuff like that. Not a lot, some, and was on a lot of the mainly demo BBSs. Is the main thing I was most interested in.
So, when were you first involved with the Commodore 64?
Well, I had a friend that had a 64, and at the time I had a TI 994A. And he had a 64, and we played games and whatnot, and I'm like, the TI is not cutting it for me. So, actually, my first was a 128. So I got a 128 when it came out, and boxed 128, and waited almost another year for a drive. Had a tape drive for a while in America, of all things. But I ended up, I never owned a 1571 boxed. I ended up getting a floor model from Kmart back when they sold those.
So, why, you mentioned that you're an archivist.
Right.
So what interested you in archiving all this stuff?
I have a large collection of my own, and I'd already used, before the Zoom floppy came out, I was using Star Commander to back up a lot of stuff just with a X1541 cable. I bought one online. Not much of a wiring guy, so I bought one online and was hooking up that way, and used the parallel port on a computer.
That's back when DOS was required, right? Used Star Commander.
Yeah, and actually Star Commander was a lot like the Total Commander or some of these other things. It was just a kind of a screened copy and paste, copy the whole thing into a D64 image. And I did my part of my collection then, but I've always been a big software collector. You know, whenever there's a time to copy anybody else's disc, I would copy them. I used to, back in the back of Computer Shop, where I used to go to the ads and buy floppy disks by the 1,000, and copy stuff to it. I was active in several different users groups over the years in different states, and I always managed to suss out the people that had disc collections. So
I kind of fancy myself a preservationist, but you're at a whole different level here.
With me, the biggest claim to fame for me is I don't mind the grind. I don't mind to sit there and, you know, with me, the way I tell people that want to archive this, I have too much to archive. I don't know how to start. I'm like, you take a disc box, you put 50 discs in it, you work through 50 discs, then you pull those 50 and put another 50 in. And then a week later, you wake up and you've done 200 discs. And then a month later, you've done 500 discs, and then and so on and so forth. There's no magic to it. It's just grinding through it. Oh, it takes so much time. I'm like, I sit at the computer, I look at my phone, I watch a movie on my phone, listen to music, and it just does its business. You know, I'm used to doing the process. And for quite a while, the last several years, I've been averaging about 5,000 floppies a year archiving, and I've done that for probably 6 or 7 years.
One of the things that really interests me about preservation is the discovery of it.
Right.
I really like finding something that isn't out there yet,
right.
And I like the prospect of bringing it back.
Right.
So is that a little bit of what drives you as well?
It is. Plus, I've had a lot of experience with a lot of different utilities I've used in the past that may be still stuck in somewhere in my collection, or things that I'll bring up. Oh yeah, have you heard of this program? No, I've never heard of that. You know, people would be later in the scene or have run on different channels, and so they, oh yeah, I have this program that does this, and this collection of things that do that. And, you know, these one-off programs that people had never even conceived of, never heard of, and you know, I guess the obscurity of some of it is part of it. That I enjoy bringing something to light that they may not be aware of. You know, I've had a lot of experience with different software packages, and especially a lot of utilities and games and stuff like that. But I always consider myself a collector of things more than a user of things. I mean, certain times of utilities I did, but I collected games just like everybody does and played a few of them, but most of the time I just added it to the collection because I didn't already have it. And so that's kind of been an offshoot of that aspect, just trying to back stuff up. But with me, I'm not an artist, I'm not a coder, I'm not music. I enjoy that stuff, and I've always collected demos and enjoyed that process, but the thing that I could contribute to the whole that no one else seemed to be doing actively was archiving. And so that's one of those things that stuck with it. The guys come in here, they're coders and style members at the time before I was invited into the group. We talked about, said, oh man, he said, you've got the most important job. All the other stuff, coders or artists and stuff, even though there's not a lot of them out there, he said, what you're doing, you're the only one doing it. And right now, there's a few of us around. But in the U.S. especially, there's not very many that actively archive. You know, that when I see on Facebook that someone's talking about their collection, putting out there, hey, I'm in the U.S. and I can do that. There's a lot of guys in Europe that do it actively, and that's great. That's more power to them. But there's not that many guys in the U.S. that are actively, they do their own stuff, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's the constant pursuit of finding the next thing. You know, not knowing what the disc hold, you know, and I work hard at archiving. I've gone through the disk drives to prove it. Because with me, it's important to get the data. If the disk is crappy and moldy or whatever, I'll work and clean my drive multiple times to get a good read on it and then throw the disk away.
Yeah.
But
so
that's what you're after.
It is actually. I mean, you and I are kind of the same mind.
Right.
So if you could think of what the most interesting thing that you found in your archiving.
Well, I know of several things that interesting that people had never heard of until I turned them onto it. There was a program from Magic Disc back in the day that was a drive music piano. It has several different examples of drive music, which will fuck your drive up. Excuse my language. But it was something like what? They'd only seen the drive music little demo that would do, you know, would play one song they got from Q-Link. Well, this was a piano, if you will, that you could play notes on your drive, you know, spinning the drive head, and had multiple songs in it. That was one interesting thing. The other interesting thing that I found is a group that was, they were releasing compilations called the Kernel Collection. I only had one disc of the Kernel Collection I downloaded back in the day from a BBS, and there must have been 5 or 6 different, but it was collections of ROM kernels that a group had put together, and it was like 4 or 5 different, like Dolphin DOS and Jiffy DOS, and back in the day, you know, copying that stuff, but just kind of a collection of that stuff that, you know, some of these groups that put out these big tool collections, I enjoyed all that kind of stuff. Kind of obscure things, if you will. I enjoy, I mean, everyone's got a copy of Fast Happening or Maverick or things like that, but when you get to these one-off things that no one ever seen before, or you never heard of, you know. Right. I ended up with originals of Serpent's Crown. You know, I never heard of that. You know, it's a game by EA, but it's an early game, and it's just one of those early, you know, one-offs.
So, I mean, I don't know how your experiences mirror mine, but have you ever seen anything on a disc? Maybe disc or track 18 is read, but when it's time to actually read the data from the disc, it fails.
Like difficult?
Yeah, or disappointing that you couldn't get it.
Yeah, there have been several. There have been some that I could pull a directory track and then go in. It would not pull the drive, and I worked and worked and worked and worked. Finally, get a good read on it. My baseline for stuff like that is if it pulls a directory track, then I'll copy it. If it gives me fits, then I'll clean the drive bed and I'll try to copy it again. I'm trying to get as much of the data as possible, and I use 1571 specifically because they will nib first and then create a D64 and G64 from that process. But it does it all at once, and the reason being because it would tend to be overkill, but I don't know who might need that data down the road. My job is not to view the data or know what to do with it. My job is to archive it. And that's how I view that process, because it's more important for me being one of the few people doing it to archive it and let the programmers or everybody else figure out what to do with it after the fact. Now, one drawback from that is I don't keep the discs. When I'm done with them, I usually, if they're decent discs, I sell them on eBay as blanks. Because the whole point for me is getting the data. Right. And at 5,000 discs a year, I can't keep everything. You know, you figure 7 years of that, 5,000, that's 35,000 discs. Who can store that many floppies? You know, I've gone through a lot of collections, and some people, oh, I can't find this disc. I'm sorry. I mean, I do as much as I can do, but you know, no one can keep all that. No one's got the available space to keep all that process.
So one of the things that drove me personally early was when I ripped my original discs. I had about 1,000 discs that I ripped back in the 90s. And I started putting them online. I'd get messages from people thanking me for finding something that they'd programmed 10 or 15 years earlier. You clearly, tell me about when somebody did the same for you, because clearly you recognize
that hasn't happened as much with me, but what happened with me is I was a collector. I collected everything. So I had I had a CG collection, a Commodore Graphics collection that I put together and archived myself, that were all captures of P files from BBSs, or I would open CCGMS and capture the graphics and then cut them out and save them in separate files. And I had ended up having eventually like 12 or 15 discs of CG, which is unheard of. People have little bits and pieces of stuff. But I archived it. I had a SID collection. It had all SID, stereo SID stuff. There was actually, from Q-Link, they had developed a SID filing program that was sorted based on music, stereo, words, and animation files. It would actually archive it that way, and I had a collection of that. Archived it, I did that, and my double-sided games and stuff like that. So people would thank me for that kind of stuff because, well, when I archived my SID collection, Peter Wegel, who does the SID archive, not the stereo SID, I'm sorry, not the high voltage SID collection, but the CGSC, I think it's Computes Gazette SID collection is what it is in Europe. He said when he got my archive, it bumped his archive up by 40% because I had a lot of stuff. I collected a lot of SIDs, and there were a couple big groups that I was familiar with that had SID competitions that would do a specific music, and 5 or 6 people on the BBS would all do the same rendition of it. If there's one in the BBS in North Dakota, I connected with a guy that had this collection of SIDs. And then there was in Chicago here, actually, there was a BBS that I was on back in the day called the Music Emporium, and their thing was all about music, stereo SID music, regular SID music, and they would have competitions on a regular basis. So those are all things that people did not know existed because there were small niches, and a lot of people that, unless they were with Q-Link back in the day, did not even know, you know. After Q-Link died, they figured all the music died. Well, it didn't. I did have a few people thank me for giving them copies back of their SIDs that they thought were long lost. A few guys that were big into that back in the day on Q-Link and other places didn't have access to them. So I had access to a lot of stuff that people didn't because I searched it out. I kept my ear to the ground, and when I meet someone, I talk about, hey, let me do this. Oh, yeah, I got these discs that I got, you know, my husband served overseas, and a couple times I ended up with military collections, so there were people that had copied them on military bases, came back to the States, and then I copied their collection. You know, collections, I guess you could say.
It's amazing. Well, I don't have any more questions. I mean, you're very thorough.
Blah, 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 blah.
No, it's great.
But yeah, that's what I enjoy. You know, when I say they made up the title for me, Archiver, because I wanted to be part of Style for a while. I've known the guys on BBSs and stuff, and enjoyed a lot of activity level and stuff. And they finally pulled me aside and said, you know, we want you to be a member of the group. And I said, well, I don't draw or make character sets or anything. I said, yeah, but you got a more important job than most of us have, because we put that stuff together and we code that stuff, but you are finding the hidden treasures that exist out there already, people's collections, and as the discs go on, they're eventually going to die, and you know, you're kind of racing against time to try to do the best you can with what you have.
Right.
And so that's kind of what motivates me. I mean, I've been coming to like these expos for the last, well, this is I think my 15th year. Coming to different expos, and after a while you get, you know, that's what you do. And I would set up my Zoom floppy and my drive, and I would copy stuff, and people would, I usually use it as a tutorial, because people would buy a Zoom floppy or some other archive and say, oh, I bought one of those last year, but I never had learned how to use it. So I would train people how to use it. Now, that doesn't mean they went out and archived their stuff like they should have, but at least I did as much as I could do for them. You can only guide them along the process. If they're not motivated to do it, no matter the amount of guiding you do, they'll never.
It'll never happen.
It'll never happen. Exactly. But I'll goad people along, and I contacted. I know another archive collection, you know, from VBS that the guys got, and I told him, I haven't forgot about you. I'm interested in getting it, but I want to work through the backlog. He said, no worries. They're in a safe place. And he said, let me know when you want them, and I'll send them to you, and you can archive them. So I know there's other archives out there I have access to. It's just a matter of contacting the person and staying with it.
All right, awesome.
So, I mean, there's always more.
Right.
There's always more out there.
There's always more.
Well, I mean, I want to eventually be able to get to a point to archive my own stuff. I've got probably 15,000 discs of my own that I haven't archived yet.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So why are you prioritizing other discs?
I don't know, because my stuff I've got in tubs, and they're fairly, I've always kept them in pretty good, you know, out of the, well, I can't say always out of the cold, but out of the moisture and out of that kind of stuff. So I think they're relatively safe.
Right.
Compared to a lot of the other stuff that has been in a barn, as you well know.
Yes.
You know, moldy or musty, or moldy and musty.
Right.
Or, you know, but I really have to do my own, because I've got a complete tub with a divider that's under the bed storage tub. It's completely full of games
Right.
that I've downloaded off BBS's. A lot of them. Some of them from early internet stuff, but a lot of them are downloaded or copied from other people. So yeah, I've got to do that. And utilities. I've got a huge utility collection.
Right.
Stuff like that. So.
Well.
But a lot of the guys in Europe, Mason's one specifically.
Yes, Mason.
64 Heaven. He loves every time I post stuff. I'll text him on the scene database because he said, I've found a bunch of cracks, because his big thing is to get every version of every crack ever done. And so he said, a lot of your stuff, he said, I love getting your stuff because it's U.S. cracks that did make it over to Europe a lot of times.
Right.
And so he, I let him know about that, and he contacts me, and I would, I would be interested in even joining the European team. They got the archive team. They've got off scene database. I know a lot of the guys. I was one of the archivers when Morpheus was doing C64.com. I would be the U.S. contact for different people. I archived 4 different individual archives of people's stuff. They would send them to me. I would archive them. I'd put them on a CD for them and send them back. So.
Yeah, Mason contacted me when I first started dropping myself on the CSDB about, good grief, it must have been like 12 years ago. And yeah, he asked me for my entire collection. He is.
There's no outlet. I mean, they don't have access to any of that, and there's not that many people that are archiving in the U.S., so you have to tap those resources the best you can, because...
Yeah, if you look at the prominent sceners from the U.S., you have EagleSoft, which is incredibly represented.
Right.
Then you have import groups, which are incredibly underrepresented.
Well, the import groups that import each other.
Yeah.
Import something, they add the import, and then someone imports it to Europe, and they add their import, and someone from the U.S. imports it again, so there's 3 layers of import. You have to figure out who's who and where they came from. And then, see, that was very big early on. Then later on, I was in the era about, with NEC and NEA and ATC and INC and, all those groups that, especially with me, I remember a lot of ATC stuff and a lot of NEA, NEI.
Yeah,
they were doing
Northeast Importers.
Northeast Importers, Northeast Crackers, Touch of Class, ATC, INC, International Network of Chaos, and all that kind of stuff. And those groups, some were import groups, some were crack groups, some were combination groups, some were. That was the day when it really started having heavily a lot of U.S. European combination groups. So
right,
a lot
the
of
co-ops.
Back and forth. That way they were able to cover both the importing and the cracking at the same time. Different group members, U.S. HQs, or there'd be 2 or 3 U.S. HQs and a couple European HQs, and they transfer, couriers back and forth to move things around. And some of the parallels with that is there was a web series called The Scene. Have you ever seen that one?
I haven't.
It's 2 seasons. It came out, 5 or 6 years ago. But it's all about the piracy scene, like movies and stuff. Okay. But there's so many parallels in a lot of the running scene and demos and copying stuff. It's very similar to the same types of scene as 64 stuff.
Interesting.
Very similar in that respect.
I'm going to have to catch that. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about this.
Talking.
No, believe me. I mean, just like everything else, it's worth preserving, right?
Right.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Brendan, or Inverse Phase, or I don't know. I have like a bunch of other nicknames. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking to you about Demo Splash, and I thought I'd get it on tape. So tell me a little bit about
it. It's a demo party. If you've ever watched a demo, or I guess I should say, if you haven't watched a demo, it's kind of a computer music video, but it's more than that. There's no recorded video. It's all algorithmic and often fits on, say, a floppy or less. So you're watching, math, art, and sound the music video.
All right.
And everything's synchronized.
You've never seen a demo?
There you go.
You're talking to a guy who was born, raised, and sucked on the teat of a Commodore 64.
So you've
yeah.
seen plenty.
I've seen a couple, yeah.
And you've probably seen a whole ton of Cracktros, which
Yes,
is,
I may have
evolved
even
into the demo scene.
Yeah, I may have even written one or two, but it's neither here nor there. But are there any limitations on this demo? Is a PC demo okay? Amiga, Commodore, Atari?
They will try to accommodate whatever system you want to submit in. I mean, last year the demo submissions were kind of low, so we combined the modern and the retro categories together.
Okay.
But usually they're separated, so like if you're writing a modern PC, GeForce, or whatever demo, that's usually going to get sectioned off from, a CX Spectrum demo or something.
Right.
But it's just, I mean, there's kind of a lack of demo parties in the U.S. At Party is in Boston, and there's Synchrony, which gets on a train in New York, writes their demos, arrives in Montreal.
Oh, okay.
And shows them in Montreal, and that's kind of cool. And there's one in California. I forget the name. I'm sorry. There was NVC for a little while, and that kind of seems to sort of have died off a little bit. So, like, Demo Splash is maybe the second longest running one, and it's just a bunch of Carnegie Mellon students that are really into old computers and demos, and
That's awesome.
wanted to do something cool. I went actually last year as a musical guest. Since I'm a chiptune guy, I kind of fit in, and I just kind of fell in love with the event and really wanted to help them promote, so here's the flyers, trying to get them out and get a pile of demo sceners to congregate somewhere in the U.S.
So you mentioned the European scene. Are you familiar with the European demo scene? How does this event compare?
It feels... So the one difference I've noticed is that the U.S. demo scene or U.S. demo parties have less of a LAN feel than like X or Revision
Right.
looks like just a giant ass LAN party.
Right.
Assembly used to look like a giant ass LAN party. Now it looks like, I don't know, commercialism took over a giant ass LAN party. But I mean they're all cool. So Demo Splash. You're free to bring a computer and set it up or whatever, but last year it was in something called Rashid Auditorium, which is a giant, like, auditorium-style lecture hall.
Okay.
So it's got those, like, fold-over desk things, and chairs and whatever, which are fine for a laptop, but maybe not everything. You don't probably want to bring your Commodore 64 to CRT and try to plump it down there. But on the other hand, they've got all the hardware, so I mean, if you wrote something on any of those platforms, they can probably play it or set up to do it. The ANSI competition was on fire. There were like 24 ANSI submissions, which I guess is not a whole lot, but compared to like 6 to 8 demos, it's like 2 to 3 times as many ANSI arts. And everything that was submitted was, like fun and cool and, that sort of a thing. I talked to the organizers of Riverwash, Faye and Argazek. They did that last weekend or whatever, and they got, I think, 45 demo submissions.
Seriously?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, very good.
And it's like, I guess it's now the biggest demo party in Poland. It's not in Germany or Finland or, like where Revision or Assembly or one of the big parties, I guess, is. But they had, I think they had a good 200 people or 150 or something like that. I might be talking out of my ass, I'm not sure.
No, you're probably pretty close to right. Poland's really up and coming in terms of the demo scene.
Which is really neat.
Yeah, you mentioned chiptune, so what is your preferred synth chip?
I like experimenting with different stuff.
Okay.
With me is, down here I have a Pokey. and I've built a universal synth controller board.
Okay.
So any PSG, any FM chip, whatever it is, as long as it takes 5 volts, it can go on here. And in the case of the SID, actually, I even just have a volt converter set to 12 volts so that I can give it the second voltage.
Nice.
But it is the same board, and here's there's one unpopulated.
Let me get that.
Yeah, sorry, here.
Very cool.
So I wanted, I mean, chiptunes are my career now, which is really weird to say, and it doesn't quite pay the bills, but I'm working on it. I want to listen to weird nuances of chips and different revisions and whatever, of which the SID is really great for, but just anything. So now I can build a board that electrically controls every single chip the same, and plug them all in at once and be like, send this command, to every single one. Or if I wanted a symphony of a pile of different chips, I can do that. If you're an Atari or Commodore person and you hate the other platform, don't listen to this. I want to do something blasphemous where I run the pokey into the SID's line in.
I would love to hear it.
And use the SID's filters to affect the pokey. Because the line in
really cool.
Yeah, so another good example is, since all the pins are exposed and since it's modular, I can take the oscillator from one chip, plug it into multiple chips so that I can get the rise of the waveform all, at the same time on all of the chips. So then, if I detune a little bit, some people will do that, and kind of creates if you detune normally, you get a chorusing effect, kind of like a guitar chorusing pedal or whatever. But if you detune and you enable hard sync, you get a completely different effect. It sounds like the same sound, but broken somehow. Trent Reznor does that in Hand That Feeds with an ARP 2600. And so I kind of actually want to do a Hand That Feeds cover and use the Atari bass, that classic gritty, nasty bass on the Atari for that guitar in the beginning.
Right.
But then the SID actually supports hard sync internally, so I could do the same thing that he did with the ARP with the SID. So all the chips kind of have their own uniqueness to them, and I don't like to hate on one over the other. I mean, if you walk up to me and you're like, Brendan, would you rather write music on a SID or an AY? I'd probably say I'd rather write SID music, but I still find, there are cool tricks that you can do on the AY that you can't do on the SID, and, whatever, so that's kind of fun.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? You look to be in your 20s.
That's very nice of you to say, but I have gray hairs, and they are plentiful.
I don't see them,
nearing
but
40.
Nearing 40?
Yeah. Just a little bit under 40.
So when the SID came out and the Pokey came out, you were probably embryonic.
A tiny kid.
Yes. So what interested you in doing SID music? Especially, you were probably growing up in the 90s?
Well, I grew up in the 80s too. So
late 80s?
This is kind of the music of my childhood, right? This is my pop music. So now I want to write my own version of my pop music. I'm in a pretty musical family, but I can't really play the instruments, and I don't have any music training. I took keyboard for dummies or whatever you want to call it. The Yamaha keyboarding 1 or whatever when I was 4. But I held on to a little bit of that, but I kind of became interested in programming, right? And so now it's I can program my music by writing it in a tracker. Why don't I do that? Just kind of became interested in that and went down the spiral of whatever that is. It's all downhill from there. But I've been doing it since I was a kid, so I'm intimately familiar with that, at least.
Right.
Enough that I can, I suppose I could play you some. I don't know. Are you SID, NES, Atari?
You know what? Play your best, and I'll let the camera.
Don't ask a musician that. Let's play here is a track. This is so my buddy is a game composer. Josh Welchel is his name, and he did a soundtrack for an Adult Swim game called Oblitus or Oblitus.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it's like a modern indie game or whatever, but kind of a lot of natural tones, and it's a little bit ambient in spots. And he played me a work in progress version of it, and I kind of accidentally 4/4'd it. And turned it into a dance track.
Okay.
So this is not playing out of this board, obviously, but I have emulators crammed up the rear end of my music software that is the software version of these boards.
Okay.
This is the new stuff. This is where I got my start or something. But we can here.
So is the music reflected on the LED?
So the LEDs is, we set up a DFT, which is discrete Fourier transform. Like your fancy car stereo has an FFT, that just like, what is 67 hertz? I mean, I can sort of hum it, but, it doesn't have any musical meaning, right? So with a DFT, you can bin it out to specific notes. So I can be like, that is a C sharp, and here is a bar telling me how much C sharp there is, or how much G, or how much whatever note. So we separate that out, bell curve, to figure out the most important notes, and then draw a big dot for a loud note, and a small dot for a quiet note. And of course it's catching all the background noise that's going on because it's through my mic.
Oh, okay. So it's not a direct feed.
Yeah.
Very similar to what you have there. Just stack them up. You think the color cycle works?
That was your high score in this game?
No, I said 100,000 beaten high.
You got it. Yes. Throw your ball. Throw it.
Well, I went to a video game con in September, and it was a video game con.
What kind of people did it attract?
Lots of cosplay.
Okay.
Lots of younger people that were into the older games. It really wasn't. They didn't focus on retro stuff. They had newer games. They had tournaments for it. Mm-hmm. Last year, it's 2 days. Last year I got there on the second day and kind of missed the fun stuff. This time we made it there on Saturday and got there for the main thing. The biggest disappointment was that they didn't allow filming in the vendor area, which is which is where 90% of the cool stuff happens, because it's just row after row of people selling things, and that's where you're going to find the most interesting stuff. They had the free play area, which was arcades set up that you could just play without having to actually put change in them.
Right.
They had a console play area, again, where just sort of, your Super Nintendo or your Sega Genesis in a cage hooked up to a TV that people can play. That was cool. Not a single Commodore thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Tisk.
Yeah. I looked all through there because I was actually figuring if there was anything Commodore related, I might actually get it, because I was working on setting this thing back up and getting it up to spec. But not a single thing, and a lot of the stuff that they were selling was not even like interesting rare stuff. It was like a rack full of Mario Brothers Duck Hunt.
Okay.
The stuff that every Nintendo came with.
Right. I have one too.
Yeah. So, they had there was a tournament on a big screen.
Right.
There was a tournament on a big screen, but it was like bright in the room, like all the lights were turned up, so you could barely see what was on the big screen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was, and the burlesque show last year. we found out the first year they did it was it was pretty good. It was, you know, they dimmed the lights and Billy Mitchell was screaming, but they still had the burlesque show. And
I'm trying to get a picture in my mind's eye of this burlesque show while Billy Mitchell is screaming bloody murder.
Yeah. Well, because what happened was he was playing Donkey Kong.
Oh, Donkey Kong.
And he beat the game for the 474th time, and he was making like this big show of like, hey, I'm about to beat this game. And so the guy that was running the burlesque thing was actually, you know, hey guys, if you want to see a kill screen, that's over there, but you know, there's boobs. So he's standing there and he's like yelling, like, pay attention to me, while there's girls taking their clothes off. And people are kind of, you know, trying to humor him. They're, you know, holding up their camera to take a picture, but they're looking over there. And he's standing on top of the machine, giving the thumbs up and yelling and whatnot, and no one cared.
Yeah, if you've seen King of Kong, we've seen kill screens.
Yeah, exactly. But the first year they did the burlesque, and it was good. They dimmed the lights, and it was an interesting show. The second year we found out, I didn't see it, but talking to Lily, we found out that they didn't turn the lights off, so it was just very awkward. And this year was the same thing. It was just a brightly lit auditorium with girls coming out and stripping or taking their clothes off, and it was incredibly awkward.
Because you can see in the audience if people don't like it and look at you.
Yeah, well, that's what Lily said. She goes, you know, normally you come out and you do your show and you get, you know, you kind of shut off everything else and you just do your thing. Well, now you come out and it's bright out there and you're doing your thing, and one guy goes and checks his phone and you're like, oh God, I suck. And then everything just unravels.
Yeah.
So you could see these girls trying real hard not to pay attention to what people were doing. And probably the best burlesque performance was a dude dressed as Deadpool, and he did it was hilarious. His whole shtick. That was probably the best one of all of them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wonder when they're going to bring burlesque to the VCF and ECCC.
Yeah. That's...
Probably never. I think it's kind of an interesting combination, you know, vintage game festival or a video game conference or festival, and here's some chicks taking off their clothes because, hey, why not?
Yeah. The first year, but they had some interesting. They had like one girl was dressed in a Kirby suit, like, you know, the big bubble.
Yeah.
She came out and did the whole thing, you know, and it's like, okay, that's. Woman, yes, a woman. I'm sorry. One woman came out dressed in a Kirby suit, and that was different.
Are you being tone policed?
Is that?
Are you being tone policed?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm a random guy from the internet. I'm giving AJ absolute permission to use whatever language he chooses.
I'm living alone. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's a good
Trust
thing
me,
here.
I'm from the internet. I'm here to help you.
Yeah, so it was.
Yeah.
It was different, and it was fun. I you know, it seems to me, and I don't want to be too negative about it, but it seems like every year that's gone on, it's gotten a little bit,
Nah, as in, well, I'll just, what does nah mean?
It's
just boring? Lame?
Yeah, it's not, the first year it was packed, and it was really interesting, and there was a lot of cool stuff, and I guess it was new. And now, every year since then, last year, there weren't too many people there, and there wasn't very much, and again, I was there on the second day, so I thought maybe, you know, I'm just seeing, you know, them getting ready to leave, basically. But this day, I was there first thing in the morning, and we were there all day, and There weren't that many people. I mean, there was a fair amount, but nothing compared to the first year.
Well,
Right.
the way I learned about a video game con is actually that Richie Knuckles promoted it together with Billy Mitchell.
Yeah. Well, that was the big draw
Yeah.
the first year. Billy
Yeah.
Mitchell.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was really like they were promoting it live, you know, like, and now Billy Mitchell is actually contributing to the Kickstarter, you know,
Yeah.
and AJ was like, this can't be so cheap,
Yeah.
you know, the entrance ticket is like, well, it says so on the page, like, this can't be, it was,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
How much was it?
The first year it was like $15 or something. Because
Okay.
I pledged on the Kickstarter, and they're like, "Okay, you get a ticket," and I was like, "That can't be right. That's way too cheap."
Mm-hmm.
And no, that was right. And then after that, it was like, after that the prices went up, and it was, you know, last year it was 50, I think, and this year again it was 50.
Right.
So
ECC VCF is free, and you get much more than what you pay for.
yeah,
You know, vendors. You know, one interesting, year after year after year, there's always some little girl there selling cookies, brownies, Rice Krispie bars every year. And this person never seems to age. I don't know if they're just wheeling in new little girls or what, but brownies, cookies, Rice Krispie bars. I don't know if you've seen those toys that came out a couple years ago where you can make little pixel characters.
yeah.
Yeah, they have a vendor there who creates those, and they create some pretty elaborate things. You can buy those. My kid bought a companion cube a few years ago, if you remember that from the game Portal.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I noticed about the vendors there, and not to disparage them at all, but they bring in junk, and they often will ask for premium prices. Yeah, you can get this Apple IIc. It's missing four keys on the keyboard, and the disk drive is kind of flaky. But I'm going to ask for $300, and it's like, yeah, no. It's if I'm paying $300 for a machine, it's got to be pretty freaking minty.
Yeah.
But it's that whole, you know, it's old, therefore it's treasure kind of thing. The Apple II was an incredibly popular computer here in the States. You know, almost every elementary school, junior high, and high school had them in their computer labs.
Yeah.
And they're not hard to come by. But people wheel in their treasure. And it makes me wonder, whenever I go there and sell my stuff, I sold an Amiga 2000 for, I think I asked $150 for it. And people gladly paid that. I was giving the price of $125 for those SX64s that I had. I'd cleaned them and repaired them, $125. I got them for $50 a piece. I really can't justify jacking up the prices, especially when I'm selling it to someone who really wants it and will really take care of it. But some of the vendors who show up there are like, hey, I raided a barn, and this is what I have. This Apple II GS doesn't have a case on it, but I think it might work. I haven't tested it. And yeah, this mouse doesn't have the ball in it anymore, but hey, it'll work with an Atari ST, so I'm going to ask $20.
Mm-hmm.
So it's challenging. I always go there with the intention of buying something kind of cool. And I always leave there, you know, with fewer of my things and none of anybody else's.
Yeah. I see that on eBay a lot too. You go on there and here's a C64 and it's going for $400, and it's like there's millions of them. You know, there's
literally.
Yeah, this isn't a rare item. This isn't something that you can't find anyplace. You know, there's millions of them, and they're not worth $400.
It's got to be something special if I'm going to drop that kind of money on it. And to be honest with you, if I paid $400 for anything and brought it home, my wife would be parading down the street with my head on a pike.
Yeah,
it's it's not.
Yeah.
Well,
there was a C65 just recently sold on eBay, and it doesn't have the VIC-3 chip, so it's a brick essentially.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
$18,000.
if I'm dropping that kind of money on something, I should be able to drive it.
Right, exactly.
Can I put a
and the thing
signal on this thing?
And it doesn't have the VIC chip. And the thing is, it's a VIC-3, so they didn't make. There's not a lot of them. You can't just go and get another one. You know, it's like there's fewer VIC-3s than there are C65s, and there aren't many C65s.
Right. Yeah. So what this guy's selling it? What? Just to have as a conversation piece, just so people can say,
well, I mean,
"Hey, I have a."
Someone bought it. I mean, that was the price that someone bought it for.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was an auction. He started it off at, I don't know. It was like he started off at 10 grand, and it went up, and 18.
No kidding.
18 something was where it ended up.
Hmm.
It's a collector's item, sure, but it doesn't work. You can't. There's no software for it, and there's no video chip for it, so it's useless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I suppose if he's a hardware guy, he might be able to figure out a way to
maybe
have it spit out an image somehow.
Okay.
Oh, thrift store.
Oh God.
Yeah, I got those too.
The worst joysticks ever made.
I know.
Worth every penny. Yeah, it's in really good shape too. But yeah, you're right. It's terrible. I mean, button up here.
Yeah. Triangle.
Yeah, triangle.
It's
like what I missed out on while I was.
It's just like James Blunt singing Triangle on the Sesame Street while he's playing with that joystick.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of random bits and pieces, and it's just they're not living up to the hype that I hoped they would.
You know what
this
disturbs me?
I got this thing, right? And I'm like, hey, this would be awesome because I can use my RAM expansion and the fast loader. Well, first off, no, you can't, and second off, you can't see the screen because you got this giant RAM expansion sticking straight up in front of it.
I know, I got the same problem. Anyway, you know what pisses me off the most? Is that many retro experts or fans are complaining that the C64 Mini is emulation. No, it's not.
God, constantly.
No, it's not. Every time I see somebody on my wall complaining that the C64 Mini is emulation. No, it's not. No, it's not. So I'm always replying, no, it's not. Here's our interview with the guy from a year ago. Listen to it.
Yeah, it's got shortcomings. That's not one of them.
I think a lot of people are just getting tired of feeling burned. You may remember that essentially it was a Commodore 64 shaped PC that came out a couple years ago.
Web.
No. It was
64, the
not the Webbit. No, the Webbit was its own travesty.
You mean from Commodore International, of the guy who unfortunately died?
Yes.
But expensive C64's PC cases. Yeah.
I had people coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, there's a new Commodore coming out." I'm like, "It's just a PC in a Commodore case. It's not quite."
And an emulator.
Yeah. I don't even know if it had an emulator on it. It's just a PC in a Commodore case.
It had an emulator. Yeah.
I think it had a Linux distro and Vice.
Yep.
Yeah, there's lots of...
Anyway, the C64 Mini is not one of them. It's made by Darren Mayburn, who also was the guy behind the DTV, so...
Really? That's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
I still had my TV.
It's an interesting project. I mean, it has some limitations in that you can't... It doesn't really have expansion. You know, you can't plug in a disk drive. You can't plug in a modem or anything like that. You know,
but that is why they also will bring in the 664 Plus.
Right, but I still don't think that's going to have those ports.
It doesn't have a user port.
No user port. I don't think it's got a drive port either. A serial port.
The D64s, you could modify them so you could get disk drives and stuff like that connected to it. I wonder.
Yeah, but Jerry is not the one of the C64.
Yeah, this is all FPGA. Jerry's not involved in this one at all.
Okay.
Yep.
But I mean, it's got an expansion port, and it's got. I mean, I don't know if the full-size one's going to have joystick ports or if it's just going to be USB like this one is.
Let's have a look.
But it's cool, but it has limitations to what it can do. Which
right.
You know, I keep saying that this one's more for like for soft nostalgia. It's people that want to relive their childhood and play their games without actually having to get into like the guts of it.
Right. Blowing out the mold or whatever.
Right.
Buying something secondhand that may or may not work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just want to plug it in. Oh, here's some games. I'll play some games, and now I can turn it off and put it away.
Right. Right. I think one of the great things about what I do with my old hardware is I get to share with my kids. My middle son is really into the older hardware and he likes playing the older stuff. So I'm very thankful for that he's kind of taken an interest in a lot of the stuff that I'm really interested in as well.
Yeah. Still trying to get the girl interested in it. she traded desks with me because hers was bigger and so it would hold
okay,
more stuff.
So the page is saying if the page is saying the Plus full-sized fully working version is also coming in 2018 as well.
Yes.
So don't know what full-sized fully version means.
The keyboard will work. You don't have to plug in a USB keyboard like with the smaller one. It's going to have a cartridge port, expansion, but I think that's about it. They haven't really released too many other specs, but from what I gather, there's not going to be a serial port or a user port, and that's the thing. I would. It's capable of doing everything else. You can drop to basic and program. You can. I think you can use the USB connections to put in some kind of mass storage. A USB stick or something. So you can do some things with it, and that's what I'd be interested in, is to use it to do things. To go onto to the Telnet boards or something,
right.
or hook up a disk drive and be able to play an old game if I felt like it.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a worthwhile thing. Just just for the gadget factor alone, just to see how this thing works. That's the only reason I bought the DTV. Is I read so much about it, and I just wanted to see how that thing worked and what I could do with it. Sadly, I had the American version, so the limitations had some severe limitations to it, but I still was able to do some interesting things with the hardware. Yeah. So yeah, what's the asking price for this product? What are they asking for?
Oh well, I can tell you, I've pre-ordered it on Amazon.
I think it's like $150, 120, something like that.
Okay.
You mean for the Plus version?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not horrifically expensive. It's within range of what they're asking for the 64 Reloaded and for Gideon's 64 Ultimate.
Okay.
So the Z64 Mini is selling in Germany by Koch Media for €79.99 euros.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the Mini. That's the small one with the keyboard that doesn't work.
Yep. I pre-ordered it.
Yeah.
When are they expecting to ship? I'm starting to sound like an ad, aren't I?
April 4th.
The Minis are supposed to be in, from what I gather, the Minis are supposed to be in stores by Christmas. Like Walmart and
April
Target
4th.
April the 4th.
No kidding.
For the Minis.
April 4th.
For the Minis.
For the Mini, April the 4th.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. That's the official release date according to Amazon.
Okay.
At least in Germany. I don't know how it is in America.
Yeah, I had heard or read or something that they were expecting to be in stores like Target and Walmart by Christmas time, but I don't remember where I read that.
Well, why should Germany take 4 months for that?
I don't know.
Probably because the customs.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's a European product. It's from UK, so I doubt that will be the reason.
Well, they'll toss out Brexit on you and say no.
Yeah. The UK isn't part of England, isn't part of Europe anymore. So.
It still is. So the Z64 Mini is coming out in 2018 with over 60 games.
Yes, 64 games.
So it's even coming out. Yeah. So yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing a retail price here of $95.
Oh, that's not bad. For the mini or the full size?
Just the mini.
Oh, okay. That's
There's also a full-size version. This is from Engadget. So, yeah, interesting. A couple USB ports on the side. On-off.
It's interestingly is we seem to be the only people that actually interviewed him.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, considering how much press it's getting, I'm kind of surprised.
Well, it's getting press now because they teamed up with Koch Media, and they're suddenly getting ready to go. But I mean, we talked to them like a year ago, over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And apparently nobody in the universe listened to that because no one seems to understand what it is. Because every post on Facebook, oh, it's just an emulator. It's like, no.
Yeah, I think people are just getting a little cynical after, so many promises made by companies that bought the Commodore name and have released things under the Commodore brand.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of trash. I mean, I watched your phone review. Yeah, I watched your phone review, and I'm like, yeah, this thing, it's even back when Tulip owned the Amiga line and Amiga Inc. started back up, and they made all sorts of promises, and they were cracking down on people who were using their IP and everything else. Just a lot of empty promises and stuff that never really came to be or wasn't delivered as promised. And I think that's kind of carrying over, and I think that's the problem that this developer might be having as well. Just 20, 25 years of promises that never come to be.
But the DT was a good exception.
Yeah,
it was.
There's also things like right now there's the ZX Spectrum Vega or the Vega Plus or whatever it's called, which is another similar kind of thing. They were going to redo the ZX Spectrum, and it's just been an absolute debacle. The people put in a ton of money, and it's all been spent on like lavish dinners. Nothing has been produced, and it's just
like
been
Kickstarter money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just been a complete and total travesty, and they were supposed to have shipped in September, and they have nothing.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not become a little cynical when somebody announces a new product under a brand that, I mean, the three of us 20 years later after the hobby is, past its nadir or past its apex, still really enjoy not only the products but the company. And after years and years and years of all these promises that never came to be by people who own the intellectual property or the trademark or whatever, it's hard not to become a little cynical about it.
Yeah.
So who knows? I really like this to be a successful product, just to maybe give it a shot in the arm,
right.
Generate some more interest, and maybe something new will coming down the pike. Maybe an Amiga line, something like this, a mini Amiga. Well, the Mini Mig, maybe, but something that's shaped like a A600 or A500 or even a A1000.
Wasn't it already announced?
No.
Was it?
I think it was.
Well, I mean, there is an emulated the what's it called? The Mist. It's a little computer. It's got different cores you can put in. Amiga is one of them.
Right. Yeah, the FPGA style stuff that's been out there that you can, make it an Atari ST or make it an Amiga.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the internals of this, the mini Commodore, what exactly is in it?
We have no idea.
Okay.
Well, listen to the podcast. I don't remember.
Well, no, I mean they didn't go into specifics. It's just all FPGA, and they're recreating the C64 on a hardware level, kind of. But
okay,
it's not emulation basically. It's not like it's running on an ARM processor or anything. It's
right. Okay.
But they didn't get into specifics. I don't think at the time that they even knew really what the specifics were going to be, because this was like early 2016, so they were really getting
May 2016, I think it was.
Right.
Just copied in the link. Of course, Skype doesn't recognize it because it's scene.world. But if I put HTTP in front of it, now it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, It's
that means we also already got our intro. Thanks to that. So let me see, when was that? It was in May 28th.
Yeah. So it was pretty early on in the project.
Okay.
Still an exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think I haven't heard them talk to anybody else about it, but it's
Oh.
and no
Well, I
one
think
else
it's great
seems
for retail stores.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
I
Walmart's
definitely think it's a worthwhile thing just to have it out there and again generate interest in this sort of thing again.
Because Jens Schönfeld is not going to hit the stores with his
No.
C64 Reloaded Mark II.
No.
No.
And that's not a viable thing to sell anyway because there's not enough old chips. I mean, even the FPGA version, you don't have enough, cases and keyboards and all that stuff to build machines to sell.
Right. Ones that are in good shape anyway. You're talking using new or older cases and that kind of stuff.
Right.
That is why the Mega 65 project is generating new cases, own cases, and own keyboards.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're lagging behind too. Mega 65, but they weren't necessarily trying to get anything to market. They were just trying to get this stuff documented. And if they happen to make something come to market, if they happen to make a C65, then awesome. But if not, then at least we got this stuff on paper.
Right.
Well, I mean, they are still trying to release it, so it's not like it's not going to happen. Yeah. They just are thrown by delays.
Yeah, they have no money and they don't have any time to do it, so it's just kind of whenever.
Yeah, I totally understand the time part.
Again, though, it would be a cool machine to see and to have and to play with, but there's zero software written for the C65. So marketability-wise, no one's going to buy it because what can you do with it? It's
right.
You can use C64 software, but I can get a C64 for, a fraction of the price.
You think it would spur any kind of development for the C65?
I doubt it.
Yeah,
there's maybe one or two people would make some demos or something, but the days of trying to figure out, let's make specialized software for this, it's gone because everyone's got a laptop or a PC or something that they can do.
Well, it has a C65 on it.
Yeah, but
that is why it's called Mega 65.
Right, but I'm saying there's no software for the C65. So,
well, there is one demo, I believe.
Well, that's not going to compel me to buy a computer. When I can just look that up on YouTube. Yeah,
there is a demo called Z65 in Action, demo by Setwago.
Yeah. Is that machine documented very well?
No.
I mean,
opcodes. It is actually, yeah.
Is it? Well, that's part of what Mega 65 is doing, is trying to kind of retro engineer and document how they built the thing. Because from what I gather, now that we've talked to some people, and I've seen some interviews, it was like the company knew it was going down, and the C65 was just to keep some people busy. Here, 8-bit guys, play with this. It was never meant to come to market. It was just
really,
yeah, it was busy work.
Okay. Got to justify their paycheck somehow, huh?
Yeah, essentially. They made this. It was a really cool machine, but it was never intended to be released, which is a shame. But so I don't know that they really kept that good documentation with it, because it was just kind of do what you're doing.
Right. 3.5-inch floppy, yeah. Bringing it into the 90s.
Yeah.
Advanced graphics, more than 16 colors, yeah. Bringing it into the 90s. Right. But what is it going to compete with, right? I mean,
it's going to compete with itself, with the Amiga.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it looks like an Amiga, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit. I always wondered how usable it would be with that floppy drive sitting on the side like that, elevated. Would you run your wrist raw, rubbing into that drive all the time, typing?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
They made some weird machines, Commodore.
Yeah.
There were some weird design choices.
Yeah. Well, case in point.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Huh?